right, so a really quick video because I got two stories coming out about things outside the UFC that are going to directly affect the UFC. One as a positive, one potentially as a negative. And we are going to talk about both. We got a huge it's all free agency stuff. Well, kind of. Newly signed elsewhere and someone who is a free agent who I would say is very likely 80% to end up at the UFC, probably 90%. And it's going to be a big deal when he gets there because he's a huge, probably the biggest star that it could become a free agent and make a huge splash instantly in the UFC. I'm sure that you guys already know who it is because I've probably titled the video about it, but just in case, you know, like I don't want to step on the lead, but I'm sure you guys know it's Venom Page. So we're going to talk about that. I want to talk about where he would fit in the welterweight division and what that looks like, and then also the PFL thing with Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou, and we will get after it. So let's rock and roll. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, I would appreciate it if you would do that. It is the only metric that I pay attention to tell if I'm doing a good job. So I would really appreciate it if you are someone who watches my content, if you would just subscribe, that would be amazing. And that is what it is, dog. And so we're also, today, we're doing 2 spots in the same day for Yo Kratom. So if you're a Yo Kratom, what? If you're a Kratom user, you already know what it is. And this is what it is. They sell it by the gram. They sell it by the kilogram. And bottom line, you will never find better prices than you will on Yo Kratom. It gets here in 2 days, just like Amazon. You will love it. Let's rock. All right, so here is the deal. Let's start with Francis Ngannou and Jake Paul ending up on the same PFL card, and I'll tell you why. Okay, so you have 2 things happening in the very near future related to this. One, you have Jake Paul about to fight Nate Diaz, a former UFC fighter, obviously. August 5th in Dallas. We are going. There's a huge crew of us that are all going. And that fight is going to be off the hook. And bottom line on that fight also is that the success of that fight will have implications potentially for other UFC fighters and whether or not they want to test free agency, potentially go box someone, do what Nate Diaz is doing, co-promote, etc., and potentially make a huge amount of money. So we'll see how that goes. I am so curious how these events would be performing if stealing pay-per-views was not so easy. I don't know if this is a fixable problem. I really don't. I mean, like, it almost feels like it's gotten to the point where we were at with music downloads, like in the early 2000s, you know, where it was like where Napster just changed the game completely. Everybody always had CDs, and all of a sudden people were just sharing music online. It was before they really had any infrastructure around it. And bottom line, it ended up changing the entire way that we consume music. You know, the music business had to remodel. They ended up with these kind of paid services. You pay a certain amount, you listen to whatever you want. I mean, if you really think about that, if you really think about what it was like in the music business prior to Napster and after Napster, it's completely unreal. Like I'm not sure exactly what I pay for Apple Music, but like I have access to every album ever. Every album ever for like, I don't even know. It might be as cheap as like $6 a month or something. Like, it's insane. Where before you had to buy each individual album for like $15. It's outlandish what the difference is. Outlandish. And now you have historically you had pay-per-views, people paid for them, and then now it's like 80% of people are just stealing these. It really, I don't know, man. I've talked about this before. I don't like it, man. I really don't. And I especially don't like it just because I know how much work goes into these events. And when I hear about these events losing money, when I know for a fact that if everyone who watched it paid, they would have made an enormous amount of money. You know, less people would have watched, but a hell of a lot more people would have bought. It just bothers me, dude. It's like there's so much risk involved. You put up so much money. All these it just sucks, man. But again, we'll see how it performs. And then you also have the Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury one, which I'm very curious to see how that performs also. I was thinking about this today because you know, I've been seeing a lot of backlash towards Tyson Fury recently because he was going to fight this one, then he was going to fight this one. It's like, whatever he was doing, where he was all of a sudden fighting, he's fighting Dillian White, then he's fighting Ruiz, then he's going to fight at the end of the year against Anthony Joshua and whatever, and then now he's fighting Francis Ngannou, and people are mad, they feel like he's ducking people or whatever, where it's like, I mean, that's not what's happening, right? They just couldn't get deals done, and Francis Ngannou is an easy opponent, he thinks, and he's getting a lot of money, whatever, but like, I'm curious because Tyson Fury is obviously the biggest draw in boxing. And so I'm just curious what the impact on the pay-per-view is going to be with the combination of a seemingly, inferior opponent and whatever this backlash is. You know what I mean? So we'll see how it performs. You know what I mean? But yeah, both of those things have big impact on the UFC, again, because the UFC really does not want, their big, because the only people that would really want to test free agency and potentially go do boxing are big stars. And you cannot, like, the UFC will sell a certain amount of pay-per-views regardless. But the gap between a UFC card that has like good fighters on it, but no like really big stars, and one that has like the big stars, it's huge. It's an enormous difference. And so losing 3 big stars is catastrophic to the UFC. And so, it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. And then behind that, you have Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou. They're going to fight in the PFL. Now, for Francis Ngannou, my opinion is him fighting in the PFL is, in MMA is, depending on who he fights, obviously, but most likely it's going to be much less interesting to a fight fan than it would have been if he would have been fighting someone in the UFC who is a very worthy opponent, So like, I can't see how the PFL fight for Francis is going to be equal or more interesting to a UFC fight. But Jake Paul MMA debut, that's a whole different ballgame, dude. That is a whole different ballgame. That's going to sell, dude. That is for sure going to sell. And so you put those two things together, and you get Francis with a really game opponent, or not game, whatever, like someone notable that you're interested to see him fight. I mean, like, if in some miracle scenario you got him to fight Tyson Fury on that card or Deontay Wilder, dude. Then you got it'll be the first time that a competing organization does a pay-per-view, at least as far as I understand, they do a pay-per-view that ends up making money. And I think they'll make a lot of money. They'll make a lot of money. If they get Tyson Fury or Deontay to fight against Francis in MMA on the same card that Jake Paul is on, they will make serious money, dude. Serious money. And that matters, because even when the UFC had competitors that were kind of eating into their viewership a little bit, which has not really been the case since they bought Strikeforce, but when it was Elite XC, Strikeforce, the only competitor that they had that could sell pay-per-views was Pride. None of these other ones were pay-per-view modeled. But if PFL comes out of the gate and they do a big ass pay-per-view with those guys, dude, that could be a big deal in the industry. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that shakes out, and I'm here for it. Now, oh, by the way, if you have not watched the video that I did about Luke Thomas earlier, you should. I was really on one. If I seem calm right now, what's really this is as calm as I'm capable of being. So if I still seem high energy, I don't know. That's because this is me. This is Jesse on calm, But yeah, I went off earlier on Luke Thomas, and I stand by every single thing that I said because he deserved it. So give that a look. And also, if you haven't tried the Benieve products, the reason why I'm so energetic all the time is because I'm using those nootropics that me and Gabrielle sell, and the link is in the description if you want to try them. You start with a half dose, or it will kick your face into the dirt. Trust me, it's the bomb, but you do not want to take too much because it's really, really strong. But anyway, so we're talking about Michael Venom Page now. So Michael Venom Page is now officially a free agent, and he is not going back to Bellator. He's going to, if he already said, I don't want to go back to Bellator, where do you think he wants to go? He's going to UFC. He wants to follow Michael Chandler and go to UFC, and that's what he's going to do. I would bet my life on it. So Michael Venom Page is by far the most exciting like established career free agent that the UFC has gotten in a long time, dude. I would even say more hype in his initial fight than even Michael Chandler had. Like, Michael Venom Page is a superstar, dude. He's a superstar. If he comes out and he wins, like, if you, I mean, I guess I'm assuming you guys know who Michael Venom Page is. If you don't, that's going to change very quickly because he is the dude. His style is so exciting, dude. He has the craziest knockouts. He's like, I don't know if you don't know who he is, look him up. Very, very tall, very, very lanky, ridiculous, like spinning flying kick. He's like he's like a flashier. He's like a mix between Israel Adesanya and Sean O'Malley, and except much flashier than both of them. He's so good, dude. He lost to Mike Perry in a boxing match, but who cares about that? Like, he's a karate guy. That doesn't mean anything in a boxing match. So if he comes to UFC in welterweight division, my goodness gracious, man. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how he deals with the grapplers at the top of the division because those guys are killers. But obviously, they're going to handpick his opponents and give him a couple people that he can kick through their teeth out of the gate. And man, I can't wait to see it, dude. I cannot wait. That is going to be very exciting. He'll be a pay-per-view main event, main card, not main event, but pay-per-view main card guy immediately, dude. He'll probably be the one right before the co-main event on his very first fight would be my guess. He's going to get paid, dude. And he deserves it because he is an enormous star. To be able to build out your star the way that he has while competing in Bellator the whole time, that's not easy to do. You have to be a big star. You got to have a whole package, and he does. He does. So, I was going to go through the whole kind of list of the welterweight division, but I mean, it breaks down like this, dude. Against a striker, against almost any striker, he is going to be a serious problem, dude. Against really high-level grapplers, we'll find out. We'll find out. But that's what it is. Quick video. I love you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. I'm going to go take an IV, a health IV, and then I'm going to Six Blades to go train. That's what I'm doing. Love you guys. Peace.